All right, my friends, welcome back to day 5 of picking up the 7800 XT from Best Buy. This card, I've got to say, like, this thing really does have me. This card really does have me in a situation where I'm feeling like the AMD 7800 XT is by far probably the best value bang for your buck card you could get this generation. It actually does fairly well at 4K on pretty much everything I've thrown at it so far. Like, yes, you are going to have to utilize like FSR2 in some of these games, but I have been able to get over 60 frames a second on everything I've played on it. I was just testing out my racing games today. Because that's a big thing. That is a major thing for me when it comes to GPUs. I have to be able to have at least my screen max out, my screen range max out at 120 for my display for my LG CT OLED that I have hooked up to my sim racing rig. I have to at least be able to get that 120 hertz for me to consider a graphics card like a viable option. With the 3080 that I had, it would on a lot of the games I would easily be able to hit the 120 FPS on that. Some of the ones that I wasn't able to, like Automobilista 2, what was it? Gosh dang it, Assetto Corsa Competizione. And there wasn't many. There wasn't many because a lot of them, are kind of, a little bit older games and stuff. So the 3080 was pretty good, but I mean, I was always over 100 frames per second on the 3080 easily when it came to my racing games. It was more than enough to push those games. They don't normally utilize a whole lot of VRAM, so that was never really a problem there. So it was able to scale pretty high for those games. So I in that regard, like the 3080 is pretty solid. But I'm pushing over 130 on Automobilista 2 on this card. Like, this card is doing very well when it comes to the overall experience, like what I'm getting from this card. Like, I actually recorded a whole video for Automobilista 2. I'll have that one out, for the 7800 XT. I'll have that out sometime really soon. I was testing out, like some of my Ubisoft games with this card, being able to run them at, max settings at 1440p, well over 100 frames a second on those ones. Jumping them over to, like, Division 2 was about 45 frames a second at 4K. So, I mean, that's one that I wasn't able to hit 4K with that card with everything maxed out. And that was like, ooh boy. So that's like the first one that's really like stopped me in my tracks, because I don't believe, I was looking for it. It doesn't have any like upscaling, I don't think. I couldn't find it. So, well, maybe I just didn't look that hard, but I wasn't really too worried about that. I was making a 1440p video. Toward the end, I decided to go ahead and check out the 4K, but I didn't really put a lot of time or effort into seeing if that was something that I can do. But maybe I will swing back around to that and try to get like a 4K video out of that. Like, I've been going through some of these games, checking out the 4K. And the thing is, and somebody mentioned this in the comments section earlier, that like when other reviewers are like showing you like the differences of the cards, they're talking like a percentage or whatever. What really matters, and what I really think matters to a lot of PC gamers out there, like you have your people that like those little fractions of a percent absolutely matter to them. But to me, and to a lot of other PC gamers out there, I think what really matters is playability. We want playability, we want longevity, and we want to be able to trust that our graphics card is going to be able to propel us into the future and not make us feel like, oh my gosh, man. When I go to buy a graphics card, like, I don't want to be thinking about like, oh yeah, I need a different one. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be feeling like that. I want to be able to feel like, yeah, man, I spent this much money on this card. This is the one that I chose. I want this one to be able to give me the best bang for my buck. I did buy a lot of Nvidia stuff, and a lot of it wasn't planned. My whole goal was the 3080 the whole time. If you go back and you watch like old things, you'll see that like when I started talking about moving over to PC, 3080 was where I was pretty much in my mind, and that's pretty much where I wanted to go, and that was what I felt was probably going to be best for my overall needs. And yeah, man, that card really fell short pretty fast when new games started coming out. So I was like, wow, this is really not that great of an experience. I've had multiple new games come out since I've been on the AMD platform. I did start AMD at a higher end. I started at a 7900 XT. I've worked my way down to a 7800 XT. And to be completely honest with you, for the style of games that I play and the way I play games, I do believe that the 7800 XT is a very good bang for your buck. I personally, fairly new to PC, been doing this for a couple years now. It's like I said, started out with Nvidia, moved over to AMD now, and what I like to do, and I know this might not seem reasonable, this might not seem like what most people do. Most people are more into like certain things, more people want to push super high frame rate. I want to push visual quality and still be able to have a playable experience. But my thing, when I buy a graphics card, I want to be able to run my games at ultra settings. I do, and I want to be able to have a playable frame rate. That's why I kind of tie myself to a 1440p monitor. Like, yes, I would love to play some of this stuff on the 4K. I'd love to check it out, but 4K gaming is not exactly like... it's not that sweet spot for me like 1440p is. So when I buy a $500 graphics card or a $800 graphics card or $1,000 graphics card, yeah, dude, I want to be able to easily hit 1440p at maximum settings and get a playable frame rate. And when I mean playable frame rate, I'm talking over 60 frames per second, and still be able to play that and be able to use utilize the bells and whistles of that card. Like that's my thing. When I came over to AMD, I 100% was like, okay, I'm just not going to be able to do ray tracing, because there was so much stigmatism tied to AMD, like, oh, you're going to have terrible ray tracing, you're going to have this is going to be bad, that's going to be bad. And for the most part, if you're playing an Nvidia sponsored ray tracing game that's pushing the newest and greatest features for ray tracing for Nvidia, yes, your AMD card is going to struggle. There's nothing, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It is going to struggle, and you are going to be like, oh man. But when I play games like Control from Remedy, when I play games like Resident Evil 4, when I play any other game that has ray tracing, like they seem to magically work very well and give me good image quality, good ray tracing performance, and still fit easily within my 1440p boundary of being able to play that game over 60 frames per second. There's not many that haven't been able to do that. And when it comes to these heavily sponsored Nvidia titles, if I want to use path tracing or I want to use that, yeah, I am down to 1080p, upscaling it from ultra performance, and letting my either my 4K TV handle some of the upscaling so that it looks better, or utilizing that on my 1440p monitor where it still looks pretty good, but it does look softer. It does look a little bit blurry, but it's still 100% playable because I'm still able to get that 60 frames per second. Even though I'm essentially playing at 360p, being upscaled to 1080p, it still looks okay. I don't really have a problem with that. If I utilize RSR, virtual super resolution, then that usually does a pretty dang good job at upscaling that for me. Sometimes a little bit better than FSR2 does at those lower resolutions, but overall the image quality and the experience is exactly what you would expect it to be. Now let's be honest, ray tracing is still a very expensive feature when it comes to being able to utilize and rasterize with your GPUs. There's only a few Nvidia graphics cards that actually do a very good job at that, like your 4090 and your 4080, and maybe possibly your 4070 Ti, depending on the game and the circumstances, will still give you a pretty decent experience. But other than that, ray tracing is kind of a niche experience right now that only a select few people can afford to actually go out there and get. Yes, I can afford to go out and buy it. If I wanted a 4090, I could have bought one. Between my 7900 XT and my 7800 XT, that's pretty much a 4090. Yes, I could have bought one, but I don't want to give any more money to Nvidia right now because I just don't. I just don't. Like, I don't care if they've got ray tracing. I don't care if they have DLSS. And to be completely honest with you, I never liked DLSS as much as I like FSR. That some people like that really sharp look that the DLSS gives them. I never really cared for it much. To be completely honest with you, I still played more games on my Xbox and my PS5 when I had that 3080 than I played when I had the 3080. Like, I was more interested in playing those games on my console still because I didn't like the over sharpening look, and if I didn't use it, then I wasn't getting that sweet playable frame rate that I'm sitting here banging on about. I get that the 3080 is a last gen card. Like, I'm not dumb. Like, I get that. I understand that. I understand that both the 7800 XT and 7900 XT are next generation cards. Therefore, they're going to have better architecture. They're going to have better speed. They're going to just be overall better experiences from being like a generation ahead of the 3080. Like, I get that. I understand that. And to be completely honest with you, let's think about this. First impressions matter, and they matter a lot, man. Like, you come to my videos, you watch my video. If you don't like me, you never come back. But first impressions do matter, and they do matter a lot. When my first impressions of the Nvidia ecosystem and the usability and being able to actually utilize that platform, it wasn't a completely terrible experience, but it was there was more fidgeting and playing around and more nuance than I even cared to do. With AMD, the user experience is incredible. Getting into the Adrenaline software, being able to switch things around, being able to play with things, being able to see how things work, having it be able to tell you exactly what you're going to be able to utilize with that. I found buying these cards and getting on there and experiencing the AMD software to be incredible. Like, it's given me a lot of knowledge, and it's given me a lot to think about going forward. So when it comes to, like I said, I started off with the 7900 XT for the AMD platform, and going down to the 7800 XT is kind of putting a little bit of stuff into perspective for me, because after the 3080 fiasco, I was pretty much like, yeah, I'm dead set. Like, I have to have a high VRAM. That's why I went with the 7900 XT to get my 20 gigs of VRAM, so I didn't have that issue anymore. And then, like the 7800 XT comes out with 16 gigs, and I'm seeing this card not necessarily punch above its weight, but pretty much handle its own in a multitude of gaming scenarios. Being able to play games at super high frame rate at 1080p, being able to handle 1440p with ease, and then being able to have a pretty decent experience on a lot of games at 4K. That there is something that, like, I'm very happy about, and I'm very excited to share that experience with anybody who wants to listen. Now, I get it. Nvidia has been number one for a very long time, and they make a solid product. They just have a way of always making you feel cheated no matter which product you buy from them. Like, you are always going to feel in the back of your mind like, oh my gosh, did I do the right thing? And then the price is pretty much keeping you in a spot that AMD comfortably and easily lets you go above. Like, your cost of a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte is the exact same price as a 7800 XT. You're going to get way more bang for your buck with a 7800 XT easily. You're going to get faster memory. You're going to get a higher bit rate. You're going to be able to utilize 4K gaming all the way down the stack. Whereas with the 4060 Ti, you've got like 128-bit bus. You've got the 16 gigs of VRAM. So I mean, you're always gonna struggle with that card. I mean, obviously there are going to be games that you'll be able to play at 4K with that card. There are going to be games that you'll be able to max out at 1440p and 1080p. Obviously, that is going to be something that you'll be able to do. But as time goes on this generation, I really do see that card falling apart rather quickly due to the limitations that Nvidia puts on these things, man. Like, I don't understand why they can't just add enough VRAM, add enough, like, to make it an adequate experience for you for a while. I don't see why they play the games that they play, and people continue to defend that as like, oh yeah, man, Nvidia is the best. No, Nvidia is only the best at the 4090, and the 4080 is a pretty decent cut down experience from the 4090. But overall, you're gonna buy like a 4070 Ti or a 4070, and you're gonna have in the back of your mind, oh, this 12 gigs of VRAM. If you try to go 4K, yeah, that's gonna show you pretty quickly that that's not a good idea. You're gonna be at your 1440p. You're gonna be back to 1080p pretty quickly, and that sucks, man. That really does suck. And I do feel bad for the people that still believe that Nvidia is the answer and that they're the best, without even giving AMD a try, and with continuously like going around and spewing the nonsense that these guys are never going to try an AMD card, but yet they still run around with the same thing, parroting what some other, Nvidia fanboy YouTuber said, and that really does suck. That really does suck. I mean, I see some of them trying to pretend that they're neutral or whatever, in a sense of like, oh yeah, they try to, like they call out Nvidia for their prices, but then proceed to tell you how great DLSS and all these other features are, while telling you that AMD would be such a good card if they would just lower their prices. If they would just lower their prices, it would be such a good bargain and such a good deal. No, man, AMD has been a solid experience from last generation all the way forward. I wish I would have bought a 6800 XT. I wish I would have. I probably wouldn't have upgraded as soon as I did had I bought a 6800 XT, because I would still be comfortably gaming at 1440p with my 16 gigs of VRAM. I just find it hilarious that these guys will continue to say that AMD needs lower prices and that Nvidia is, oh man, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. Like, yeah, you should be just great with 12 gigs of VRAM. I remember when they were telling us that they were cautious about 10 gigs, but that should be all right. I was like, oh my gosh, man. Like, oh, why do people even listen to these guys, man? Honestly, I think that a lot of them, money and fame and all of that stuff clearly changes people. They're going to say whatever they got to say to make whatever product they're showing off happy. Me personally, I spend my own money to buy these products, and yeah, dude, like I don't have any regrets of buying the AMD GPUs. None at all. I've actually been extremely happy with the overall experience that I've gotten from AMD. Like, I don't feel bad about it at all. I mean, at first I thought I was going to miss, like DLSS, because, people, influencers trying to influence you to think that DLSS is like, oh, this next level thing, when in general it just basically upscales your game. I mean, like, it does a pretty good job, but at the same time, FSR2 does a pretty good job too. Like, you might just have to, you might have to lower your standards a little bit for like flickering things in the distance. Like you might have to be able to get over that. And I mean, seriously, every single thing that I've seen Alex Battaglia complaining about has not one time bugged me. But because he complained about it, I actually do notice it now while I'm playing my video games. Like, I do notice it, and the more you listen to it, like the more you're going to notice it. But it has never affected my experience negatively. I've, like when I've seen like checkerboard rendering and stuff, and it made my 4K TV look fuzzy. Yeah, like that kind of bugged me when I bought a PS4 Pro and I thought it was going to be 4K, and when I'm looking at the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series X looks all sharp, and or Xbox One X and that looked all sharp, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I like checkerboard rendering because it's all fuzzy. It's like Fuzz K. Well, funny thing is when you're playing at 1440p, you don't see that fuzz. Like, you don't see that fuzz. And when you're playing at 4K with a powerful GPU and you have FSR on at quality mode, you don't see that fuzz. Like, it looks pretty dang good. It doesn't look bad at all. So whatever these guys are out there, trying to convince people that FSR2 is just trash, maybe you should see it for yourself, and maybe you should decide how you feel about it instead of just taking somebody else's word for it and then running around and parroting all of that as like it's your opinion. No, man, that's not your opinion. That is, you heard somebody say it, you took their opinion, and then you ran with it. I personally am a firm believer in trying things for myself and seeing what they are like. Now, the other day I said in a video, like in day number 4, that I was considering getting a 4080. I'm probably just going to wait until my friend that owns a PC shop gets one. I don't want to waste that money. This channel's just not making enough money to like really go out there and start highly investing in like all this testing of PC stuff. I don't need to do that. There's plenty of people out there doing that. I would much rather just cover the AMD side of things, because my Xbox is AMD, my Xbox Series X is AMD, my PS5 is AMD, my ROG Ally is AMD. All of my systems are AMD. So like, yeah, dude, covering AMD exclusively is pretty okay with me. I feel like when I go from my Series X or my PS5 to my PC, I don't feel like I still feel like I'm in the same experience, but it just looks better. It's almost like having like a Xbox Super Series X or a PS5 Pro. Like, that's the way it feels to me with this build. And that's exactly the way I wanted it to feel. The experience with Nvidia just felt. I get why people are like, oh man, I don't want a PC. I don't like tinkering around with things. That's I get that. Like, that's the way I felt with the Nvidia experience. Like, that's how I felt. I felt like, man, like I don't understand some of this stuff. Like, I don't have time to sit here and try to learn all of this. And that's why AMD has been such a freaking godsend for me. Being able to get on there and find everything I need to, and be able to customize my experience very quickly to give me the overall results that I want. AMD has hands down met that and delivered everything I want to play playable, and it feels good. So, except for Arc. We'll get to that. We'll get to that within this day. So as I told you guys earlier, I am going to be doing a 30-day run for this card. I will be doing a video every day about how I feel about the 7800 XT, the experience that I have with the 7800 XT, all the ups, all the downs. If driver issues or any of that kind of stuff starts happening, I will 100% be honest with you. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I will tell you, but I'm going to say this right now. Little stupid things that do not affect my experience. And like, when I first switched over to AMD, I had like this memory issue thing. It shut me down for about a week. I was still able to function, but it shut me down, and it started making me very mad. So I talked about it. If there's something like that comes up, yes, you 100% better believe I'm going to talk about it. But if I got like maybe like a flickering screen or something like that, and I'm able to resolve some of this stuff pretty fast, if it's something really annoying, I'll make you a deal. If it's something really annoying and I find a fix for it, boom, I'll make a video about it, or I'll include it in one of these videos so that you can understand and so that you know. But I haven't experienced any of the issues that people are on Reddit talking about. And I've been reading Reddit. I've been reading a lot of this stuff so that I can kind of like prepare myself to see if these experiences are happening. Because not only do I want to be able to share the AMD experience with you, I also want to be able to help them find ways to fix that and to mitigate these problems that they say they're having. But I'm not running into any of this stuff. Like I said, I bought, the XFX GPU. I've already had the 7900X XFX GPU, and that one was running smooth. I've never had any real problems with either of these things. I mean, little minor stuff every once in a while, but nothing out of the ordinary, and nothing that has exceeded the experience that I've had on an Nvidia GPU too. They both have their little problems. So like, trying to blow those out of proportion is really not helping anybody. It really is just pretty one-sided when you do that. So I'm not trying to do that with Nvidia or with AMD. Like, my issues with Nvidia really just came down to VRAM. Not enough VRAM. And that made me mad. It made me feel kind of ripped off that I was already in a position to where I needed to buy a new graphics card. And don't really care about the way DLSS looks, especially on like some of the games that I really like to play. It makes them look too sharp, and I didn't really like that, so I was okay with that. I guess people are saying that there's ways to fix that, but who knows? It's Nvidia. You got to watch 1,000 videos just so you can figure out how to use your graphic card. Whereas with AMD, you can just plug it in. You can go to the software and you can figure out how to use your graphics card, man. You don't have to watch a million videos. I literally was flipping through shorts when I saw somebody be like, "Oh yeah, if you don't know how to change the color settings on your GPU, you make sure you're getting the perfect." And I was like, "Are you kidding me, man?" Like, and it's all buried into this. Like, I was like, "Oh my gosh." This is so bad. On AMD, it's just a little slider. You click the little thing on to have color, and then you just slide it over, and it looks incredible. So, all right, my friends, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is day 5 of my 7800 XP or 7800 XT experience. We'll keep going with this. Yes, I'm gonna make 30 videos like this. I don't care if you watch them. I don't care if they only get 10 views. I am going to make a 30-day video series for the 7800 XT. So I would love it if you guys would watch them. I would really appreciate that. And if you want to help support this channel, I do have a Patreon. You can sign up and you can become a member. There are plenty of ways to help, this channel grow financially. I would greatly appreciate any help that you wanted to give to this channel. I've been doing this for almost 3 years now. I don't really go out of my way to try to ask people for money, but some of this stuff gets pretty expensive. It really does. It starts to get expensive, and then I start wasting my money. So if you guys want to support that, all the money that I do get from the channel usually goes right back into the channel. So it just helps, with buying games and stuff like that. If the channel's doing pretty well, then I'm able to buy, like an Xbox copy, a PC copy, a PlayStation copy, but October was very hard to try to do that because there was just too many games in October, and I literally ended up having to buy every single one of those. So that was a pretty rough month. So, all right, my friends, like I said, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I do appreciate you coming to watch these.